Good morning and welcome to the Grim. I'm your host, Kristen. On today's episode, we'll be opening the gate and entering Maple Hill Cemetery located in Huntsville, Alabama. So grab your favorite mug, cozy up, and let's take a dig into history. It's currently September in New England, meaning the month we all wish for crisp October mornings, but we still have the residual heat of summer haunting us. But what better way to bring us closer to fall than strolling the grounds of a cemetery named Maple Hill? Even if the temperature doesn't have us feeling the change of season just yet, the name sure does. Maple Hill Cemetery is the oldest and largest cemetery in Huntsville, Alabama, that was founded on 2 acres of land around the year 1822. It's thought the cemetery dates back further, first as a private cemetery on the Pope Plantation, then becoming public later on. Records, however, are difficult to find, and documentation back in the day wasn't the best. But the 2 acres were sold to the city of Huntsville by Leroy Pope in 1822, this is certain. The oldest grave marker found on the grounds still existing dates back to September 17th of 1820 for Mary Frances Atwood, an infant who sadly passed away. Many headstones in the oldest section surrounding Atwoods should be around the same time frame, but they're missing their headstones lost to time. Maple Hill Cemetery is home to over 80,000 souls laid to rest, and now in the present has over 100 acres of sprawling, beautiful land. It's thought the cemetery was expanded around 1849, and this also included the Pope's private cemetery during this expansion. Graves in the Pope's plot can be found dating back to the 1820s and then around 1844. Speculation that the graves might have been disinterred to their current location has been suspected, but many believe this was the original burial plot. One unique defining factor of Maple Hill is its size. You could spend hours strolling through the grounds and still not see everything. Today, the cemetery is impeccably maintained, and this is showcased when touring the grounds. Unlike some cemeteries, though, Huntsville residents have fully embraced its history. Just like many other burial grounds, Maple Hill over the years saw damage and was becoming dilapidated from time and weather. In 1984, a group of Huntsville residents decided to restore and preserve the grounds, forming the Huntsville Pilgrims Association. Yet restoring the grounds didn't seem to be enough, and justly so with all the history Maple Hill's residents partook in. Incorporating Maple Hill Cemetery every year, the town offers in October a cemetery tour unlike any other, showcasing around 58 of its famous residents and historical figures. Actors reenact those who have passed on for those to learn about their history in the present. It's a day the cemetery is honored along with its residents. Scavenger hunts for kids, photo booths, and other presentations take place. Visitors can come and go as they please during the day and learn about the town's residents as much or as little as they please. The event is free, but donations are greatly appreciated. It gives a unique appeal to visitors to enter the grounds who normally wouldn't have a reason to do so, too. So many times learning about history in books makes it feel removed to a degree from our lives, when most of the time it's right outside our door. Huntsville's approach and acknowledgement that Maple Hill Cemetery has much to offer its residents outside of a burial ground is something I wish other cities would embrace. The tour started in the 1990s by the Huntsville Pilgrims Association to help retell the stories of its influential residents. During the tour, actors near their characters' grave sites perform brief monologues retelling their tales and wear costumes similar to how their character would have dressed. Each is accurately portrayed with extensive research done by the actor. But who are the famous residents of Maple Hill? 4 of Alabama's governors call Maple Hill their final resting place, one being Thomas Bibb, Alabama's second governor to serve the state. Bibb's road to the governor's office wasn't the normal tale, however. His brother William Bibb was Alabama's first governor, but tragically died while in office after falling off his horse. Andrew, due to his senatorial office and by the state's constitution, filled his brother's seat, serving from 1820 to 1821, but never sought re-election. He did, however, later serve in the Alabama House of Representatives. Andrew Bibb passed away in 1839 in Mobile, Alabama, but was buried in Maple Hill. Governor Clement Comer Clay is also within Maple Hill. Clay's term of governor was marked by the Creek War of 1836, also known as the Second Creek War or the Creek Alabama Uprising. This was the result from the Treaty of Washington signed in 1826, which, if you're not familiar with the Treaty of Washington, you should be, and I highly suggest a good Google session if you're not. This time frame in America's history, and to be frank and honest, our entire establishment of the country, we continuously robbed the Native Americans of their land. Instead of, however, feeling morally bad about it and admitting we stole and committed ethnic cleansing, we justified our actions by the way of treaties. One being the Treaty of Washington. During Governor Clay's term, the state of Alabama was in extreme turmoil of how this treaty was agreed to and thought invalid from the Native Americans due to misrepresentation from the tribes. Clay, regardless of how he felt about the treaties, had the honor of executing their actions, removing the Native Americans from their land, whether they agreed to it or not, which unsurprisingly led to war. Clay was assisted in these actions by the United States Army, who removed the Native Americans from the southeastern Alabama region by the agreement of another treaty in 1832 called the Treaty of Cassetta. Simply put, we kept proposing treaty after treaty till the Indians had no more land to bargain with and were removed to the Indian Territory at the time, now known as modern-day Oklahoma, west of the Mississippi. This removal we aptly called the Trail of Tears, but it was more of an ethnic cleansing of great numbers. For many of the Indians would never make it to the territory, or if they did, other tribes who were removed previously from other regions, of say like the East Coast, weren't welcoming to them with open arms, but instead a fight. This was an absolute disaster and downright unethical in any terms. Clay then also saw the Panic of 1837 take place, which was a financial crisis conjured by the speculation of a fever. This was similar to the yellow fever epidemic we covered in last week's episode, but the speculation was not an actual epidemic just yet. The worry of what might come caused a run on the bank of the state of Alabama and then led to a financial crisis. For Clay, if his actions in history weren't damning enough in history books, he was also, during his lifetime, a slaveholder. When he first arrived in Huntsville, he was said to have only one slave, but by 1860 had an astounding 84. Clay, after his term of governor, went on to serve the United States Senate for Alabama from 1837 to 1841. He passed away from natural causes in 1866, 1 year after the Civil War. Clay and his wife are buried next to each other in Maple Hill Cemetery. The third governor buried at Maple Hill is Reuben Chapman. Chapman doesn't have a super exciting term of governor, yet his relationship with French Ambassador Louis-Adolphe Aimé Fourier, Comte de Picourt, had a lot of people talking during his day. Fourier was known to have offended many U.S. congressmen during his time in the States, including Chapman by unknown remarks. Enough so that Chapman, along with Virginia Congressman George W. Hopkins, challenged the Frenchman to a duel, but he cowered from the fight. The next congressman outraged at Fourier also was from Virginia, was Congressman Louis Stenrod. Eventually, in 1846, Fourier's remarks escalated to the point where President James K. Polk finally had to request the French government to send Fourier home. Chapman passed away on May 17th of 1882 in Huntsville, Alabama. Our final governor inside Maple Hill is Robert A. Patton. He served Alabama from 1865 to 1868. Patton's timely entrance to politics was one beginning right before the Civil War in the Whig Party, a party that wasn't strong in the states to begin with and eventually dying out after 1854. This wasn't the end of Patton, though. Beyond party politics, he survived becoming a delegate to the 1860 Democratic National Convention in Charleston, South Carolina. This would be disastrous and also foreshadowed the greater loss in the national election against Abraham Lincoln and the Republicans. Patton, however, Southern didn't agree with the secession of the South, speaking against it originally, but then supported the war effort and served as commissioner in the Confederate government. Even as a commissioner, he saw the loss of his two own sons during the war and his plantation damaged by U.S. soldiers, showing no one in the war went away untouched. After taking office, his administration cooperated to provide emergency aid to freed men and the poor Caucasians affected by the war. This, however, would be overshadowed by his administration also opposed to extending civil or political rights to freedmen, including voting rights. Patton, first and foremost's most important agenda in his office was on rebuilding Alabama after the Civil War, and he did just that. He appealed against the federal cotton tax, provided financial support for public schools, and created the Alabama Insane Hospital at Tuscaloosa. After serving, he also saw to the rebuilding of the state, becoming involved in several commercial ventures to establish and build railroads. Patton was also a trustee on several school boards and also helped rebuild the University of Alabama after it was burned down during the war. He passed away on February 28th in 1885. Other than states officials, many senators and representatives also call Maple Hill home, and there's also a lengthy list of military figures inside. From the Revolutionary War to World War II, Maple Hill isn't lacking on any part of historical personnel at all. In fact, it's rather impressive. 5 United States senators, 10 United States representatives, 6 Confederate leaders, 6 military leaders, 19 rocket team members who helped America engineer the rocket into space, 1 suffragette, and 1 baseball player are just a few of its residents. One odd sight during the cemetery tour in October you'll find on the grounds wandering around is an actor portrayal of General Samuel H. Moore and his Jersey cow, Lily Flagg. Lily is a crowd favorite and might not be buried at Maple Hill, but her owner, General Samuel H. Moore, is. She was a world-famous cow that was entered into the Chicago World's Fair after producing 11,339 pounds of milk and 1,047 pounds of butter in just 1892. An actor portrays Moore while strolling the grounds with his beloved cow every year. Maple Hill's location also aptly put it in the center of a war-torn America at one time. Buried in a section in the north side of the cemetery sits 187 unknown graves of Confederate soldiers. Most of the soldiers died early on from accidents during training or diseases and not from battle, which is why all 187 are labeled as unknown. If you're familiar with Maple Hill or into hauntings, you know I've avoided its notorious nickname and the reason why many enter its gates. The cemetery is more well known as the Dead Children's Playground in the paranormal community due to the playground within and its mysterious happenings. Of course, the playground wasn't just built inside, but in a rather unique way became part of Maple Hill. In 2007, the cemetery completely ran out of space. Attempting to enlarge the grounds once again, as they did in the past, the city decided to obtain a local playground right next door. This, of course, wasn't well liked by the town's residents, but eventually the cemetery added the playground into its acreage. Locals nicknamed the playground the Dead Children's Playground after some pretty creepy incidents of swings moving on their own, some hearing laughter, and children calling out to them, orbs and apparitions of children appearing. Maple Hill not only saw its residents through wars, but also the flu epidemic of 1918, also known as the Spanish flu, which killed around 50 million people worldwide. Alabama was no exception, seeing many of its residents taken from its flu, with many being children. Some say the children are buried right under the playground, and it's their spirits who come out to play every night between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. Rumors of children also in the 1960s that were abducted in the area were found in the playground that might add intrigue to who might be haunting the grounds. But it's unclear. Children are the only ones visitors see, though. Near the cemetery office, a man in a Confederate Army uniform thought to be Colonel William Hudley, can be found wandering around. Many times he's seen with an older man some say is his father. He never speaks to visitors, but nodding and never bothering anyone. Philip Flanagan's second husband of the Black Widow of Hazel Green is rumored to be roaming the northwest corner of Maple Hill with one large problem. He doesn't seem to understand he's passed on from the living. Flanagan is thought to have been one of Elizabeth Dale Gibbons Flanagan Jeffries High Brown Ruett's 6 husbands that she murdered in cold blood, which understandably might be where his confusion comes from of not being alive. Harmless but lost to time, poor Flanagan hopefully one day will find his way, but for now continues to wander Maple Hill. Tragic tales of young love lost seem to also be the making of great hauntings. We've already gone over William Bibb's tragic tale, but not of his brides. William was set to marry Mary Chambers in 1835, but somehow on the day of their wedding she was poisoned. Mary's servant accidentally poisoned poor Mary, who remained alive for 3 more months, but ended up passing away at just the age of 19. William built Maple Hill's first mausoleum in Mary's honor, but also included her favorite rocking chair. It's rumored she was buried in her Parisian wedding dress while sitting upright in her rocking chair. Some visitors claim you can hear Mary rocking her chair outside the mausoleum. Her brother-in-law Thomas is also said to haunt his tomb nearby as well, but less claims and stories exist. Maple Hill Cemetery's size, stories, hauntings, and history definitely make its grounds worthy to visit any time of year. Fall especially, as the city showcases its historical significance and gives visitors every reason to return again each year. Its hauntingly beautiful grounds, even without those departed creeping about, make a great midday stroll for the entire family. So if you find yourself in the South looking for a haunting or a happening, might we suggest Maple Hill Cemetery this fall in October? The grave grind for Maple Hill Cemetery was a caramel macchiato from Angel's Island. For more honorary grinds in the area, please visit the-grim.com. For now, we're closing the gate on Maple Hill Cemetery. We hope you enjoyed our dig into history. If you did, subscribe today or leave us a review wherever we're haunting your podcast queue. And join us next time when we open the gate on the Grim.